A cheap charger, a subscription renewal, a bad pair of shoes, and a grocery container that almost seals can all look responsible at the register. Then they come back with their handout. So here is the rule. Right up front, the things worth paying for in 2026 are the ones that help you stop paying twice. By the end, you should have a 4-box filter before you upgrade anything. Does it buy back time? Does it buy durability by lasting through the use you actually give it? Does it protect health, sleep, mobility, or energy? Does it remove decisions, late fees, waste, repair panic, or repeat buying? If the answer is no, cheaper is probably fine. Skipping it may be better. If the answer is yes, the purchase deserves a second look. You know the difference. The cheap charger that dies in a month. The shoes that feel fine in the store and make every walk irritating. The storage containers that almost seal. So leftovers turn into trash and dinners. Turns into takeout. The subscription you meant to cancel. Except the cancellation flow was just annoying enough that you gave it another month. That is what happens when the only question is, can I get this cheaper? In 2026, that question is not wrong. Prices are still high enough that almost everyone is reading receipts more carefully. But the better question is, will I have to pay for this again? Because the smartest spending this year is not glamorous. It is not luxury. It is not the premium version of everything. It is paying for the few things that reduce repeat buying, wasted time, bad sleep, late fees, food waste, repair panic, and decision fatigue. The goal is not to spend more. The goal is to stop paying twice. That sounds simple, but it changes the whole mood of spending. You are not rewarding yourself for being tired. You are not punishing yourself for needing better tools. You are asking whether this purchase closes a loop or opens another one. So, this is a practical breakdown of things actually worth paying for in 2026. Not brands, not affiliate picks, categories and rules. Spending that makes money feel easier because it removes a small problem before it becomes a recurring bill. Start with the most ordinary leak, the cheap thing you rebuy. Most people do not experience it as a financial decision. It is too small to feel serious. A $10 replacement here. A $20 fix there. Lunch out because the food at home went bad. A late fee because the whole system depended on remembering one more date. None of it feels dramatic enough to audit. That is why it works. It lives in the mental category called not worth thinking about. Richard Thaler called this separation mental accounting. We do not treat every dollar as the same dollar. We put money into little emotional buckets. A big one-time purchase lands in the painful bucket. A small repeat purchase lands in the harmless one. So a $70 item that lasts 3 years can feel irresponsible, while 3 $25 replacements over the same period feel normal. The math says one thing, the feeling says another. And over the last few years, that feeling has gotten stronger. When groceries, rent, insurance, repairs, and basic services all feel heavier, cheapness starts to feel like discipline, like control. That instinct is understandable. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the all-items CPI was up to 4% over the 12 months ending March 2026, with food at home also up 2.4% and shelter up 3.7%. That is not a panic number. It is the kind of pressure that makes people notice every receipt. The mistake is turning receipt pain into a personality. The cheap version can be the responsible version. Sometimes it is just a subscription plan for future inconvenience. Here is the test I trust more. Before paying more for anything, ask whether it buys one of 4 things: time, durability, health, or fewer decisions. If it buys none of those, it is probably lifestyle camouflage. It may look like an upgrade. Really, it is a nicer looking way to spend. If it buys one of those 4 things in a category you use constantly, it deserves a second look. That second look is where a lot of the useful money decisions live. Not in the fantasy spreadsheet, not in the guilty promise to never spend again. In the plain moment where you admit which problems keep returning, Time means it removes repeated friction, not a fantasy of becoming a productivity machine. Real time, fewer store runs, fewer returns, fewer support chats, fewer evenings spent solving a problem that should not exist. Durability means it survives the use it actually gets, not the theoretical best version, not something expensive because it has a fancy story, something that holds up because your life keeps touching it. Health means it protects energy, mobility, sleep, food safety, or preventive care in a way future you will actually feel. Fewer decisions means it creates a default that works after motivation is gone. A bill calendar, a savings transfer, a simple household system. The point is not to think more about money. The point is to make the right thing easier when you are tired. This matters because the annual surface area of spending is huge. The latest official consumer expenditure release from the BLS, published in 2025 using 2024 data, put average annual expenditures at $77, $280 per consumer unit. That includes housing, transportation, food, healthcare, insurance, pensions, and everything else. You do not need to optimize every dollar in that number. That would be miserable, but it shows why small repeat leaks matter. A tiny failure repeated all year is no longer tiny, and the Federal Reserve's 2025 report on household well-being found that 63% of adults said they would cover a hypothetical $400 emergency expense with cash, savings, or a credit card paid off at the next statement. That means a large minority would need to borrow, sell something, or could not cover it that way. So the useful question is not, can I afford the nicer one? It is, which choice lowers the odds of a surprise later? The first category worth paying for is durable high-use basics. Not everything you use deserves the expensive version. That is how a practical rule turns into shopping permission. The filter is frequency plus failure. If you use it rarely, cheap may be fine. If failure has no real consequence, cheap may be fine. If the purchase is mostly about identity, status, or a beautiful version of a life you do not live, skip it. But if it touches your day constantly and the cheap version keeps failing, you are not saving money. You are financing a replacement cycle. Shoes are the easiest example. Not collector sneakers. Not a luxury pair because a website told you they are timeless. I mean the shoes you stand in, walk in, commute in, work in, and complain about quietly. If cheap shoes wear out quickly or make your body hurt, paying for a better pair is not vanity. It is mobility maintenance. The same applies to a daily work bag, basic tools you keep borrowing or reviewing, a charger or battery setup that interrupts work, and household items handled so often that failure becomes part of the routine. The rule is simple. Upgrade where failure has a pattern. 1 broken cheap item can be bad luck. 2 is a signal. 3 is a subscription. The trap is upgrading too early. People buy the premium version before the use case is proven. The beautiful kitchen system before they cook. The advanced tools before they know the job. The expensive notebook, app, bag, desk setup, or workout accessory because it feels like becoming the person who will use it. That is not durability. That is aspiration spending, wearing practical clothes. The better sequence is boring. Use the cheap or basic version until the failure is obvious. Then upgrade the bottleneck, not the whole category. If the cheap pan is fine, keep it. If the knife makes cooking annoying every night, that might be the bottleneck. If your closet is full of barely worn clothes, the answer is not better clothes. If one pair of shoes carries your whole week and is falling apart, that is the target. Worth paying for does not mean buy better everything. It means pay attention to what your life is already proving. The second category is repair and maintenance before replacement. This is where people usually split into 2 bad habits. One group replaces too quickly because the new version is easier than understanding the old one. The other repairs too stubbornly because replacing feels wasteful, even when the item is unsafe, inefficient, or near the end of its useful life. The smart move is neither. The smart move is getting the estimate. An estimate is not a commitment. It is a flashlight. It lets you see whether the problem is small, expensive, unsafe, or simply not worth carrying anymore. A repair estimate is worth paying for when it turns vague panic into a real decision. A laptop battery, a phone battery, an appliance issue, a pair of shoes, a car maintenance problem. The question is not, can this be fixed? The question is, does the repair buy enough useful life to beat replacement? Use a decision tree. First, is the item still useful if repaired? If not, stop. Do not repair guilt. Second, is the repair meaningfully below replacement cost after considering remaining life? Not just cheaper today. Cheaper over the next realistic period. Third, does replacement bring safety, warranty, energy efficiency, or downtime benefits that matter? Sometimes replacement wins because the old item has become a time leak. Fourth, are parts, tools, or service access realistic? This has become a real policy issue, not just a hobbyist argument. The FTC's Nixing the Fix report documented repair restrictions as a consumer problem, and California's Right to Repair Act took effect July 1, 2024, for covered electronics and appliances under its rules. That does not mean everyone everywhere has the same repair options. It means repairability is no longer a fringe concern. It is part of the cost of owning things. The bright relief move is to make repair a normal checkpoint, not a dramatic rescue mission. Before replacing the phone, ask about the battery. Before replacing the appliance, get the diagnosis. Before throwing away the shoes, check whether the heel or sole can be repaired. Before buying the new version of something that mostly works, ask what small failure is pushing you toward a large purchase. And be honest when repair is just nostalgia. If a repair costs almost as much as replacement, leaves you with no warranty, and the item is likely to fail again, paying for repair is not noble. It is paying to preserve a problem. The purchase worth making is the one that reduces future friction. Sometimes that is repair, sometimes replacement. Sometimes it is buying the version that can be repaired next time. The third category is food waste prevention. This is not about becoming a meal prep influencer. It is about noticing that food is one of the easiest places to pay twice. You buy the groceries. Then vegetables disappear into the back of the fridge. Leftovers go into a container that does not seal. The freezer is full but not searchable. By Thursday, the food at home feels like a project and takeout feels like relief. The USDA says 30 to 40% of the US food supply is wasted. That is the national picture, not your personal grocery receipt. But at the household level, the point is obvious. Wasted food is not just an environmental issue, it is a budget leak with a smell. So what is actually worth paying for? Not a perfect pantry, not 12 matching glass jars for a lifestyle photo, not gadgets that create more cleaning than cooking. Pay for the parts of the food system that prevent rebuying. Airtight containers can be worth it if your leftovers currently die early. A freezer organization system can be worth it if food disappears until it is unusable. A basic meal plan can be worth it if it prevents the 3-night cycle of buying ingredients, forgetting them, and buying dinner anyway. And sometimes the purchase is not an object. It is the boring habit of keeping a visible eat-first area in the fridge. It is buying fewer ingredients and using them completely. It is paying a little more for pre-cut or easier food, if that is the difference between cooking and abandoning the plan. This is where personal finance advice often becomes fake tough. It says, never pay for convenience. But convenience is not one category. Some convenience is a tax on impulse. Some convenience is infrastructure. If prepped ingredients stop you from wasting a full grocery trip, that is not the same as ordering delivery because you were too exhausted to interpret your fridge. If a freezer system makes leftovers visible, it is not the same as buying a countertop machine you use twice. The rule is, pay for food systems that reduce waste in your real household, not systems that look organized when empty. You can test this without ideology. For 1 week, notice what gets thrown away. Not what you wish you cooked, what actually died. Then buy or change only the thing that would have saved that food. If lettuce keeps going bad, maybe the answer is not a better budget. Maybe it is buying the greens you will actually eat, storing them correctly, or not pretending your weekday self is a different person. The point is not to become more disciplined around food. The point is to stop designing a kitchen for an imaginary version of yourself. The fourth category is health and sleep basics. This one needs a guardrail because it is easy to abuse. Almost every wellness purchase claims to protect your future. Most do not. Worth paying for does not mean miracle supplements, biohacking subscriptions, luxury recovery gadgets, or the most expensive mattress because a quiz said you deserve it. It means boring physical basics that protect energy, mobility, sleep, or preventive care. Supportive shoes if your day is on your feet. A sleep environment dark, quiet, and comfortable enough that you are not fighting your bedroom. Dental care and preventive visits, when postponing them, can turn a manageable issue into a painful bill. Ergonomic basics if your work setup is causing daily pain. Food and movement choices that make the next day easier instead of harder. The financial logic is simple. Your body is part of your earning system. That does not mean turning health into a productivity cult. It means a recurring physical problem often becomes a recurring financial problem. Missed work, urgent appointments, expensive fixes, low energy decisions, convenient spending because you are depleted. The bright version of this is not fear. It is relief. Paying for health basics is worth it when the purchase removes a regular drag. If you wake up tired every day because your room is loud or bright, fixing the environment may be more financially useful than another budgeting app. If walking hurts because the cheap shoes collapsed, better footwear may save more than it costs. If a small dental issue is starting, paying early may prevent a larger and more painful bill, but the same $4 test still applies. Does it buy health in a concrete way, or does it buy the feeling of being a person who has their life together? There is a big difference between a preventive appointment and a wellness product that mostly sells hope. There is a big difference between a chair that stops daily pain and a desk makeover that photographs well. The purchase worth making is specific. The problem is recurring. The benefit is observable. If you cannot name the regular friction it removes, wait. The fifth category is financial automation and friction removal. This is where a small setup can be more valuable than a large burst of motivation. Most people do not fail financially because they never care. They fail because caring has to compete with work, fatigue, family, stress, and 1,000 tiny reminders. That is why defaults matter. Medrian and Shea's study of automatic enrollment in 401(a) plans showed how powerfully a default can change participation. The mechanism is not magic. It is inertia. People tend to continue on the path that has already been set. So yes, some financial setup is worth attention. Not because apps are magical, because a good default acts on the day you forget. Autopay can be worth it for stable bills when it prevents late fees and credit damage. Automatic savings can be worth it when it moves money before the month becomes a negotiation. A bill calendar can be worth it if your current system is memory and anxiety. A separate account for non-irregular expenses can be worth it if car insurance, repairs, annual fees, or holidays keep arriving like emergencies. But automation has a dark twin. Hidden waste. The same inertia that helps savings can keep useless subscriptions alive. Cancellation friction is real enough that the FTC announced a click-to-cancel rule in 2024 for negative option programs, though legal challenges later made the enforcement status contested. The exact rule status is not the point for this script. The point is that subscription friction is a recognized consumer problem. So the rule is not automate everything. Automate obligations, audit options. That sentence is boring on purpose. Obligations punish you when you forget them. Options quietly bill you when you stop paying attention. They need opposite treatment: rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, minimum debt payments, savings transfers. Anything where missing the date creates damage. Those deserve stable defaults if your cash flow can support them. Streaming, services, software trials, shopping memberships, boxes, apps, premium features, and anything you can cancel without harming your life. Those deserve deliberate friction. Put them on a calendar. Use a renewal reminder. Make them prove they are still useful. This is one of the cleanest places to make money feel easier. Not by finding a clever hack, but by reducing the number of financial decisions that depend on your most tired self. The setup worth paying for might be an app, a notebook, a spreadsheet, a bank feature, or a recurring calendar event. The tool matters less than the default. The sixth category is paying for clarity before the big purchase. That sounds abstract. It is not. Sometimes the thing worth paying for is not the product. It is the information that stops you from buying the wrong product. A pre-purchase inspection, a consultation, a diagnosis, a returnable trial, a measuring appointment, a second estimate, a short paid session with a qualified professional. When the stakes justify it, people hate paying for information because it feels like nothing. No object to hold, no upgrade to unbox. But a bad purchase can be much more expensive than the information that would have prevented it. This applies to cars, repairs, medical questions, home projects, used electronics, major appliances, legal paperwork, tax complexity, and sometimes education or career moves. The test is not, can I Google it? Of course you can Google it. The test is whether uncertainty could cause a much larger mistake if the downside is small. Research it yourself. If the downside is expensive, irreversible, unsafe, or time-consuming, clarity can be worth buying. This is especially true in 2026 because so many purchases have become bundles, financing terms, warranties, subscriptions, service plans, cancellation rules, repair restrictions, delivery fees, installation costs, return windows. The sticker price is no longer the full decision. Paying for clarity means slowing down before the commitment, the rule. When the purchase creates a long tail, pay attention to the tail. Monthly costs, maintenance, repair access, compatibility, cancellation, storage, energy use, insurance, time required, resale value, and the cost of being wrong. The cheapest bad decision is expensive because it keeps billing you after the receipt. One of the easiest ways to do this is to separate the shopping moment from the committing moment. When you are excited, every downside feels manageable. You tell yourself, the return will be easy, the warranty will matter, the monthly fee is small, the installation will be simple, and the new thing will finally solve the old irritation. So create a cooling off rule for long tail purchases. If it changes your monthly bills, requires maintenance, locks you into a service, needs space in your home, or would be annoying to return, it does not get bought at the first moment of desire. It gets a second look when the excitement is lower. That second look is where clarity pays. You notice the delivery fee. You read the cancellation language. You compare repair access. You ask whether the old problem is actually solved or just hidden under a newer object. This is not about becoming suspicious of every purchase. It is about protecting the purchases that should actually help you. A good upgrade can survive a second look. A weak one needs momentum. Now, to keep this from becoming permission to upgrade everything, we need the kill list. These are things not automatically worth paying for, even when they look practical. First, premium versions of low-use items. If you use it twice a year, the fancy version has to clear a very high bar. Second, organizational products before the behavior exists. Buying containers does not create a system. It usually creates a nicer pile. Third, subscriptions that promise to save money, but require constant attention to justify themselves. If the tool needs more management than the problem, it is the problem. Fourth, convenience that creates dependency. Delivery, quick replacements, and premium services can be useful in a hard week. But if convenience becomes the default because the underlying system is broken, it is hiding the real fix. Fifth, status disguised as durability. A logo is not a lifespan. A luxury version is not automatically better built. Sometimes the mid-range, Repairable, boring version is the financially mature choice. Sixth, buying more storage because you own too much. Storage can prevent waste. It can also preserve clutter. The question is whether it helps useful things stay useful or just delays a decision. Seventh, anything that requires you to become a different person overnight. That is the big one. If a purchase only pays off in the life you wish you had, wait. If it pays off in the life you already repeat every week, consider it. That line saves a lot of money. It also makes spending less emotional. Instead of asking whether you deserve the thing, whether you have been disciplined enough, or whether a smarter person would buy it, ask a simpler question. Where has my actual week already voted? Your actual week tells the truth. It tells you which shoes you wear, which meals you cook, which tools you touch, which bills you forget, which chores you avoid, and which cheap fixes keep returning. That information is more useful than a perfect budget category because it is based on behavior, not intention. The point of this framework is not minimalism. It is alignment. Minimalism can become its own performance. Alignment is quieter. It asks whether the spending matches the life that is actually happening, not the one you perform for a cart, a sale, or a version of yourself with unlimited energy. Spend where your real life has proven the need. Cut where your imagined life is making the pitch. So here is the final 4-box test. Before paying more, ask, will this save time I actually lose? Will this last through use I actually give it? Will this protect health, energy, mobility, or sleep in a concrete way? Will this reduce decisions, late fees, waste, or repeated friction? If the answer is no across all 4, cheaper is probably fine. Skipping it may be even better. If the answer is yes, ask one more question. What is the cost of doing nothing? Not in a dramatic way, in an honest way. Will you rebuy the cheap version? Will food get thrown away? Will the bill be late? Will the small repair become a replacement? Will the bad setup keep draining your evenings? Will the decision keep returning every month? That is where spending becomes easier to judge. The best purchases do not make you feel rich. They make life quieter. They remove a recurring annoyance. They reduce future emergencies. They make the good default easier than the bad one. And that is why some things are actually worth paying for in 2026. Not because expensive is better. Because the smaller receipt is not always the smaller cost. The goal is not to buy your way into a better personality. The goal is to notice where your money keeps leaking through repetition, friction, waste, pain, and delay. Pay once when paying once is real. Skip the upgrade when it is just a costume. And before the next cheap thing goes into the cart, ask the question that changes the whole receipt. Am I saving money? Or am I just buying the first payment?